Welcome to this explainer. Look, today we're tackling one of the biggest, most dangerous myths in the entire world of intellectual property. And that's this idea that a provisional patent application is just a quick informal placeholder to save your spot in line. We really need to dive into this because as a team of former USPTO examiners here at IP Boutique Law, we literally see this misconception destroy incredibly valuable priority dates every single day. We've been on both sides of the evaluation process, and we're going to show you exactly how to avoid this invisible trap that catches so many well-meaning inventors.
So here's the million-dollar question, right? What actually happens to your provisional when that 12-month clock runs out? Well, as former examiners, we know the exact reality of this moment. And unfortunately, for inventors who just threw together a thin, rushed application, that reality is devastating. You see, 12 months after you file, your provisional application automatically abandons. To keep your priority date, you have to file a non-provisional application. But, and this is a massive but, that earlier date only applies to what was actually fully supported in your original provisional document. When your non-provisional application finally lands on our desk a year later, we are not looking at it and asking, hey, does this provisional description explain the invention generally? Nope. We ask one very rigid, unyielding question. Does this specific claim element find explicit support in the specification? We are hunting for hard, technical backing for the specific claims you're trying to protect. Now, the USPTO only requires 4 deceptively simple things to grant you a filing date. You need a cover sheet, a written description, drawings where necessary, and your filing fee. That's it. Because there are no formal claims required and no prior art disclosure, it tricks so many inventors into treating this like a simple administrative checklist. But let me be crystal clear here. This is not just paperwork. Behind every single one of these requirements is a severe legal consequence if you don't take it seriously.
Because here is the terrifying reality. 0. Literally 0. That is exactly how many USPTO examiners are going to look at your provisional application for completeness, quality, or feedback during its entire 12-month pendency. Think about that for a second. You file it, and then absolute silence. You don't get office actions, you don't get rejections, and you certainly don't get a friendly warning that your description is way too vague.
And that zero feedback environment creates what we call the invisible gap. The written description you hand in on day 1 has to carry the full legal weight of your invention, entirely unchecked, until you file your non-provisional a whole year later. By the time an examiner finally puts both documents side by side to see if your provisional actually supports your claims, it's way too late to fix any mistakes. If the support wasn't there on day 1, poof, your priority date completely vanishes.
You know, people call provisionals informal all the time. But honestly, that informality only applies to the formatting, like, not needing official margins or structured claims. Legally speaking, your written specification has to strictly comply with the unforgiving standard of 35 U.S.C. Section 112A. This is the exact same enablement standard used for non-provisionals. It means your description must enable a person skilled in your field to make and use the invention without extensive experimentation.
This right here is exactly where we see applications crash and burn on the examiner side. There is a massive, massive difference between merely explaining what a concept does, like a general overview for a layperson, and actually providing explicit support for a skilled professional. A general description of a broad category absolutely does not enable every specific species inside that category. If you want to claim a specific mechanism later on, you better believe that mechanism has to be explicitly detailed in the provisional.
So how do you actually survive this Section 112A scrutiny? Well, a general overview just isn't going to cut it. You have to explicitly enable every single embodiment you want to protect. Works 3 different ways. All 3 need to be in there. You've got to describe the best mode known at filing, write specifically to a skilled professional, and explicitly support your mechanisms, ratios, and compounds. Chemistry, we need synthesis routes. Mechanical, dimensions, and assembly sequences are absolutely critical. Which brings us to, honestly, the most dangerous rationalization we hear all the time. Hey, can I just add the details and drawings later? Because provisionals lack formal claims, inventors constantly underestimate the drawings. They assume they can just sketch out a broad concept now to save time, and then add the critical mechanical relationships or technical depth down the road. But here is the cold, hard truth, guys. What isn't in the provisional at filing cannot be added later. There are absolutely no exceptions. This is the absolute ban on new matter. If a specific drawing, a gear ratio, or a chemical compound wasn't sitting right there on day 1, you cannot add it 12 months later and keep your original priority date for it. Any new matter gets a new, later filing date, and in a competitive tech space, losing a year of priority can literally cost you the whole patent. This invisible gap also sets up a really sneaky economic trap. Look at these USPTO filing fees. For a large entity, it's $325. Small entity, $130, and a micro entity is just $65. These incredibly low fees make it so tempting to just rush a cheap, paper-thin application out the door just to save money and slap patent pending on your website. But skimping on the actual description just because the filing fee is cheap, that is a catastrophic error.
Let's look at this timeline real quick, because you need to treat these dates with immense respect. Day 1, you get your priority date. Month 12, your provisional is automatically abandoned. And listen to me, that 12-month mark is an unmovable wall. It is not some tentative target or a suggestion. You absolutely must file your non-provisional within that window.
Now, maybe you've heard about the 14-month rule and you're thinking, great, I have a buffer. Actually, scratch that. The 14-month rule is a really risky safety valve. It is not a strategy. Yes, technically, the USPTO allows a petition to restore your priority if you file within 14 months, but you have to legally prove the delay was entirely unintentional and pay hefty petition fees. Relying on this narrow exception is a huge gamble, and honestly, it often ends in complete abandonment of your rights.
Because the stakes are so high here, getting professional insider drafting help is absolutely critical, especially in a few key scenarios. If you're planning international PCT filings, your spec has to survive in foreign jurisdictions that often have even stricter rules. It's also vital for complex fields like chemistry, biotech, and software, which, by the way, have the highest failure rates. And if you've already publicly disclosed your invention and started your one-year grace period, you literally cannot afford to get this wrong.
So how do we actually do this right? Well, step 1. Even though claims aren't legally required in a provisional, doing it right means you draft the claims first anyway. That forces you to pinpoint exactly what elements you need. Step 2, you build a rock-solid specification around explicitly supporting those elements. And step 3, that is how you actually secure a truly defensible priority date. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to look at your patent strategy and ask yourself a tough question. Before you hit submit, is your provisional document actually a legal fortress that's going to withstand an examiner's scrutiny a year from now? Or are you just setting an expensive, invisible trap for yourself? If an examiner looked at your provisional right now, what priority date would you actually be left with?